Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 26 of the Lifestyle Chase with Jennifer Neilson.
Hi.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. The traffic on the White Mud got me a little fired up, but I took my own advice from previous podcasts to go deep breath in, big exhale, feeling a little better now.
Yeah, that's good.
So how's your day today? Take us through from start to finish.
Well, today was a unique situation because my 13-year-old car decided to quit last night. So I had a little more of an interesting day than I normally would. But yeah, I woke up a little bit earlier than I needed to because I had somebody to drive me to work this morning. And she came early and I worked all day long in my marketing job. And I had to stay late because I needed a ride home, and got home and we had tacos for dinner, and now here we are.
Sweet.
Pretty simple day.
So there's been a question that's been on my mind for a while. What does everybody in your family think about your Instagram handle?
I don't think they think anything of it. I think they think that it's very on point with who I am in a personality way. That's exactly who I am.
And is that how it came to be?
So, interesting story about how my name, Bitchin Housewife, came to be. So I started my blog about 7 years ago, and I was blogging for a business that I owned, and it was a mummy blog, and there was things I wanted to say that were probably not appropriate for a business blog, and so I created my own. And it was mostly to bitch about the moms that were being mean to other moms. and then I got really into like the health, fitness, wellness realm, and I did a bodybuilding competition about 4 years ago, and it just kind of molded into this like, is it that I'm bitching about stuff? Is it that I'm awesome and I'm bitching? And depending on the day, it's one or the other.
That's awesome. Have you found it's kind of helped with marketing yourself just because it's such a catchy slogan or name?
Yeah, I get a lot of people that message me and they're like, I just found you. You have the best name I've ever seen. And I'm like, awesome, thanks. But I actually have challenges with it because it has the word bitch in it. So for example, with Facebook events, I have a really hard time boosting events and so on because they don't like the word in there. And every time I have to appeal and explain to them, like, I'm not calling anybody a bitch. It's just my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I was organizing, because I've done a few events at Central Social Hall, and I was talking to Vance, and he was saying that your yoga events just take off like wildfire.
I try.
Do you think it's, what do you think leads to that success? Is it your reputation, the Instagram handle, or?
I'm not entirely sure, except for I work really hard on like my Instagram and my blog to have like a community. It's not just like, oh, here's my followers, do as I say, listen to what I tell you. Like I try to actually have it so it's a community. We're talking, it's a back and forth thing. And I think my connection with people over Instagram is maybe what helps, because they already kind of know me, and instead of being like, oh, I'm going out to this random event, it's, oh, hey, my friend Jen from Instagram is hosting this event. Let's go check it out.
I think that's good. And a lot of people that have this have some sort of consistency to like what they're putting out to their audience. What would you say are your 4 pillars? Things that are like always consistent when you're putting out messages or when you're having events?
What are my 4 pillars? As much as I hate the word like authenticity, being authentic, but it's truly the thing that is most important to me in the sense of like expressing authentically how I feel that day. So some days I'm really full of energy, and some days I'm having a really rough day, and it's about showing either side of that and being quote unquote real in that sense. And I do that with events too. When I'm at events and I'm meeting people, it's let's just be who I am. I don't have to pretend to be somebody famous or pretend to be anything else other than I am. So is that 1 or 2? I'm not sure.
I'd count that as 2.
2, okay. 2, and then definitely because of the industry, I mean, you're in it, the health, fitness, wellness industry, being very mindful of the words that I choose and the marketing material I choose, in the sense of, I had once a teacher at a fitness class I was attending, and she kept saying, move that body, shake that booty, put this arm there, and it was very like impersonal, and it was, jog faster, burn that donut off and stuff like that. And that's not where I come from in an approach from health and fitness. It's actually about a healthy mindset and a healthy body and a healthy relationship with food and ourselves. So I'm very, very mindful and choosy about the words I use in marketing or online in general.
I like that. So it's 3. What's 4?
Oh. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what would be the 4th one. Having fun.
Good.
It sounds ridiculous and
That's
so cheesy, but yeah, let's just have fun. Life is like, there's no reason to take it so seriously.
Well, sometimes we forget that some people are out there not having fun.
That too.
Like, there's a certain degree of just having these, like, pre-planned things, or you go to a conference and they tell you how to do it, and then you just do it that way, and that's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of ties into that authenticity thing, which is a big part of this podcast. It's why I do them in person.
Yeah.
Because then, like, you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm on the phone, like, you don't know the facial expressions I'm making or anything like that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just makes for a better, more comfortable interview.
Yeah.
So, the next topic, I would like to know the story of how you got into yoga. Like, how did that come to be, and how did it become what it is?
Oh, it's a good story. You're in for So I've done yoga for, I gotta do math, 13 years. I come from like a background of Bikram, actually, which is a really extreme style of yoga. I did that for years until I actually had my first daughter. I couldn't do extreme yoga like that anymore. So I was always really into yoga. And I was in the middle of about to start going into my bodybuilding competition, and was looking around, and so I met my teacher at a 6-week workshop style, and I was just like in awe with how she taught. She was so different from every kind of yoga teacher I'd ever come across, and she swore, and I was just like, yes, I need to be that. I want to be that. This is how I want to be. And so I had met her, and I was really interested, and I had we had some money set aside to get a boob job. And so instead of a boob job, I went to yoga teacher training.
Nice.
I think it was a good choice, personally.
I think that worked out.
Yeah, I think that worked out really well for me. Yeah.
It's quite the story.
It is. It's not, I don't think it's the traditional. I come across a lot of people who are like, yoga changed my life, and I want to help change other people's lives, and no, I just really liked yoga, and I met my teacher, and I was like, I need to study under her. I need to learn her things.
Yeah.
And I had money for a boob job, and I just was like, wait a second, no, I'm going to use the money for this.
It's awesome. And in a way, you're essentially helping a lot more people with yoga,
Yes.
which is great.
Yes. And looking back now, if you were to ask me a year ago, 2 years ago, 3, even probably halfway through my yoga teacher training, if I had the money to do both, if I would do both, and I never would. I would never get a boob job done now.
I think that's important for people's values and priorities in life.
Yes.
So a lot of people that are instructors or trainers or anything like that, they'll have maybe 5 people that are fairly influential in their own practice, or just easy people to lean on when they need support.
Yeah.
Would you be able to list off 5 people?
So industry people that I admire or hang out with?
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, of course, my teacher, Michelle Thurett, she's amazing, and I've learned a lot from her personally and in yoga, and her and I are actually now really good friends, and I work for her a little bit, and she's definitely a huge influence on me. And then one of the teachers she brought in, who's from Toronto, Matthew Remsky, who taught me to be a meditation teacher. And definitely him, he has this like ability to like change your brain, and not in a way, a negative way, but in the sense of like, oh, I've never looked at it like that before. And there's a question in our meditation teacher training from like 3 years ago he asked, and to this day it still just like boggles my mind. I still think about it. So he's definitely a huge influence. Trying to think. There's some local like gym owners that I've worked with or for, and I've just been around, and I greatly admire the way that they are and how they do business and their theories about exercise, which would be Shara from SPBT and Ryan from RVX. And I'm huge fans of theirs. And that's 4.
Yeah.
So 5? I'm trying to think. Who else? I can't think.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, I can't even think. I seriously cannot.
We'll stick with 4.
Yeah,
4 is good.
4, yes, my 4 inspirations.
Those are good ones. I like those.
Yes, yeah.
So, what are 3 lessons that you've learned from these people? That like your 3 top lessons, and kind of describe how they've shaped like things that you've done in your life.
You know what? All 4 of them come from a very oddly enough, even from the yoga side of it, all 4 of them come from a very scientific-based background. And I 100% appreciate that there's that beautiful blend of like science, but also like a sense of like inner knowledge, and the blend of the 2 of them and how to navigate that. That's something I never, ever in my life, I think, would have ever been able to do if I hadn't met. Like, it all started with Michelle. If I hadn't met her, and then all of these other people came into my life, I never would have learned that. Other lessons from them. From Michelle and Matthew, definitely a lot of, like, self-reflection in the sense of, like, not, oh, I do this, I always do this in a judgment manner, but a question of, like, just why. So I remember having a conversation with Michelle one time, and she was talking about another person that she was speaking to, and this person says, okay, well, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to be 100 pounds. And she goes, well, why? Oh, well, because I felt, good about myself when I was 100 pounds. She's like, why? Oh, because I was confident and so on. And she's like, so is it confidence you want, or is it to be 100 pounds? And just like, she constantly poses the questions of why. And that's like basically everything I do in my life. Why do I do this? Why am I doing that? Is it important to me? And so on. And then my 3rd lesson would be to ask for what I want in my business. All 4 of them very clearly have boundaries, like very good boundaries of what they want for themselves personally and what they want for themselves in their business. And they have no problem either saying no to people that aren't involved in that, or yes to people, just to keep the boundaries.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's
totally.
Good.
Self-reflection and boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just kind of like rules, or like, again, I'm using the word pillars a lot, but it's just things that keep them strong so that they can last long term, which is important.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have family as a pretty big priority. It's fairly evident. We're sitting in your kitchen, family's walking all over, which is great.
Yeah.
What are your rules for keeping that tight? Like every week, what do you do every week?
I don't know if I figured it out yet, Chris. No, we have our Sundays are like, it is like our official day of rest, as cheesy as that maybe sounds. We definitely work 6 days a week. My husband and I, we hustle really hard at work and in our business and so on. And so Sundays is our, like, we do nothing. Almost try every weekend to do absolutely nothing. And even though one might be on our iPad in this corner, and I might be upstairs watching my show, this, like, that we're together in the house all doing nothing together. There's no expectations of each other. And we all come together, of course, at lunchtime. Every Sunday at lunch, I make bacon and eggs and toast, and it's like our thing. And so we come together at Sundays for Sunday dinner, because I'm not always home for dinners. I teach in the evenings. So I think just all four of us have the expectation that that day is the day for the four of us to be together, and that is probably our main pillar for our family.
That's important, because like, I'm going to have a very diverse array of audience. Like, I'll have young people that don't have a family. I'll have people that are just starting their family. Like, Vance Bosch was one of my guests, and he'll be having twins soon.
Yeah,
so, like,
I saw that.
It's quite the array of people.
Yeah.
And so some people haven't even gotten to that point where they're making that standard day.
Yeah.
They're still hustling, and they haven't worked that out yet. So it's, even if it seems like it's not like a big thing, it's still a pretty big thing, and it's important.
Yeah, it's the thing about it though is sometimes you have to feel a little bit of that burnout in order to like recognize how important it is, and then to put it in place. Because if you just, some days are our day, and it might not have as much in depth of a feeling around it, but you know, if somebody's listening to this and they don't have a family, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And that's great. But also, like, if you get to that point where you're feeling that, like, little bit of that burnout, I think that's a great signifier of being like, oh, that's where my limit, my boundary is. And then you can back off a little bit. I always believe in going a little further than the boundary so that you can define it.
Yeah, I think that's good. And like, for myself, just my lifestyle, one of my rules is I have this podcast like every week.
Yeah.
What I found is, like, while I'm creating content and stuff, and that's great, but honestly, like, I learn so much from every conversation that I have. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually fairly particular about who I talk to, because like, I generally am of the belief that my guests are providing value not only to me but other people. And if it's just going to be a dry conversation with no substance or value or anything like that, then it's just not the same.
What's the point?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. Well, that's good. Like, asking why over and over, like, because then you get to the root of like the source of things. My next question though, because you've alluded to bodybuilding, what was that experience like? And if somebody told you today that they were going to do it, what would you say to them?
Don't do it! I remember reading blog posts when I had decided to bodybuild saying, no, don't do it. And I was like, that'll never happen to me. It totally happened to me. Yeah, so bodybuilding is really is really extreme. Some people can definitely get away with doing it and it not being extreme. I met one guy backstage. I only did the one show, and I met the one guy backstage, and he literally like never even dieted. He just like was eating Snickers and that's just how he was naturally, and that's fine. And maybe, I'm not trying to be sexist by any means, but maybe it's not as bad for men as it is for women. The thing about bodybuilding is, before I make it sound completely horrible, is I did a lot of fun. I learned a lot about myself. I was, at the same time I was dieting for bodybuilding, I was actually in my yoga teacher training. And I feel really lucky that was my situation. It was stressful. 12-hour days in training, 13-hour days in yoga teacher training, and then working out 2 to 3 hours a day. And my husband worked out of town, and I had 2 small kids. They were 1 and 3 at the time. Like, it was really intense. But I also was really lucky that I was going through this process of studying under somebody who was, why?
Totally.
And so I came out of it, I feel like sort of okay mentally. But yeah, so I learned a lot about myself. It was really tough. I did it because I liked just the challenge. It wasn't about getting in the best shape of my life. Honestly, I was actually in great shape beforehand. But I came out of it hating my body. So I went in totally fine with the way I looked. I did it just for the challenge because that's who I am. I've run half marathons and Spartan races, and it's just who I am. I like the challenge. And I came out of it disordered eating. I came out of it with my hormones being messed up. I have issues even still 4 years later hormonally from it. And yeah, and it took me probably at least 2 years post-competition to really come and be comfortable with food and my body and who I am again. And it's really sad that I went from a place of like loving my body to competing to then hating my body. Like I remember 2 weeks before competing, sitting on the floor, like crying on the phone to my best friend, my sister, my husband, going like, who do I think I am going to be on the stage with these 19-year-olds? I'm too fat to do this. I can show you pictures. I had like the 6-pack abs and I was like, I'm too fat to do this. Like, what is that? That is ridiculous. So, so I of course say, I don't think anybody should ever do it. But the type of people who do bodybuilding competitions are the type of people to be like, I'll prove you wrong. So
yeah.
I would, if you're going to do it, I just say caution to having a good coach for one thing, having good relationships because you'll need to lean on them. And then the other part of it is the reversing out of it. Whether it's the reverse dieting, the reverse mindset of it, there's a lot of stuff that happens post-show that nobody even thinks about.
I agree. Like there's so much more to the act or the art of bodybuilding than just like preparing for stage and stuff. And a lot of it is just tied around genetics.
Yeah.
Like I know right away, like I have good genetics, but maybe not good genetics for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And so like to put myself through all that, I already know it's not worth it. And like to preface that, I've never had any interest whatsoever in bodybuilding, not even like the tiniest inkling.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody's like, oh, well, Chris was thinking about it. No,
Nope.
Chris was not thinking about it. But it's just, for me, having fitness as a giant part of my day-to-day and wanting people to find ways to be more healthy and more happy, I want it to be something that's sustainable long-term. And I hate to see if somebody has something, they're getting a routine, they're fit, but then it just train wreck kind of thing. So it's good to kind of cover that because usually I kind of go over like lifestyle stuff and like, I've never really talked about bodybuilding on this podcast before.
Oh, really? Yeah. I could probably talk your ear off about it. Yeah, it's very extreme. There was a girl who had an ambulance called on her backstage. So some coaches believe in dehydrating. Mine didn't, thankfully. But some believe in dehydrating, and depending on, I was in the bikini section, so it's more about looking good in a bikini. And this woman was in the, I can't remember what the next category is, but it's more about seeing the muscles and the symmetry of the muscles. And that was the category she was in, and she like passed out. She couldn't walk, she couldn't speak because she was so dehydrated and depleted of food. And I'm like, that is crazy. Like does that not just like seem insane to the rest of us? And
it's ridiculous, but it's so common. And this is me, like an outsider that barely follows it, but watched one Ronnie Coleman documentary on Netflix, and he got dehydrated and passed out.
Yeah.
So that's how you know when it's common, when like some of the leaders in the craft are doing it too. And
yeah, so like little insider information, I won't even say who, but so somebody who competed then the same show that I was in we had a mutual connection somehow. I'm going to just say that. We had a mutual connection somehow. And she in her off season took steroids, and when she was dieting took ephedra to diet down. And I never even took pre-workouts. Like I'm really lucky in the way that I was dieted down, and I even destroyed my mentality and my body and my relationship with food and my body because of it. I could not imagine these people doing these extreme measures of taking, like steroids in the off season and dangerous drugs like ephedra during dieting season. Like that's not sustainable at all. And the second they come off of that cycle, I can't even imagine what's going to happen to them in their lives. Like I had gallstones after dieting for 3 months. I just can't even imagine.
It's crazy.
Sorry, I'm being judgy now.
All good. We're promoting.
You probably have bodybuilding listeners.
I actually, of all the podcasts in Edmonton, probably have the very least bodybuilding listeners.
Okay.
Like 100% guarantee it. Just a lot of very friendly, mindful people who like their family and their values.
Yeah, cool. All right. That's me.
We're safe. We're safe.
Cool.
My next thing.
Just have all these like angry like emails and DMs after. I bodybuild and I'm just fine.
I guarantee you'll probably have more nice, friendly messages.
Hopefully.
So you've talked about all these different fitness challenges you've done. I want to know, what was the toughest one? What was the thing that challenged you the most mentally and physically outside of bodybuilding?
Outside of bodybuilding? I probably the half marathon. I actually raced it 7 weeks pregnant with my second. Well, so I had trained all summer and there was no flippin' way that I wasn't gonna run because I trained all summer. And when you become pregnant, you can continue regimes as long as you did them pre-pregnancy. And yeah, so I just remember the morning that I actually found out I was pregnant with my second, and I was scheduled to go for a 7-mile run. Sorry, I speak in miles, not kilometers.
All good.
And and I was scheduled to go for a 7-mile run, and I took my test and then threw up, and then I was like, okay, well, we're gonna run anyways, and just yeah. So that one I would say was the toughest because I knew I could push myself further. But mentally, I knew that I couldn't. I couldn't because now I was pregnant. I had to consider that. So for me, because I'm definitely higher endurance, I guess you could say. In Ayurveda, they call us pittas. I don't know if you study Ayurveda at all, but we can have a whole other conversation about that later. So yeah, so I knew that I could push myself. I knew I could push myself physically and mentally, but having to actually back off, especially because I worked all summer to get there, that one was probably really tough for me. And then I had to pee like every kilometer or two. Like it was awful. Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
What enticed you to want to run such a long distance in the first place? What was your motivator?
You know what? People ask me that all the time. Why do you want to do Spartans? Why do you want to run? Why do you want to bodybuild? I have no idea. It's literally, I'm like, that seems like a good idea. That's going to be a cool challenge. Let's just try it. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is I fail or I don't finish, and then what? Who cares?
That's good attitude. Well, because there's so much talk on failure and how it needs to be reframed. Like it's not like the end.
Yeah.
That's just part of succeeding.
It's part of life.
Like the more failures you have, the more progress you make in life.
Yeah.
So, what's your second biggest obstacle? Because you got some good stories. We're digging.
Yeah. Okay. So, biggest obstacle? Are we talking still physically, like in a?
It can be mental too. Like,
oh yeah, I could work you down all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, of course, like birth is crazy. You know, if you want to dig deep, well, I'll go deep with you. 2 years ago, I had surgery. I have endometriosis, and I had a surgery, and they removed some growth, and they removed tubes, and so on. And so shortly after, there was a lot of changes that went on in our household, and so on top of that, and the surgery, which mentally was kind of a lot because now my ability to have children was taken away. And then also like hormonal changes because of it, and then stuff going on personally in my life. I went into 2 years ago, serious depression. If you go back in my Instagram, you can see it. You can see all of my pictures of being like, I'm not okay today. And yeah, I read that, and I have this journal actually, and I've talked about this before, so it's okay. I have this journal when I meditate and I write down, and in the thick of this depression, it was probably about 4 months in now, in the journal it's something along the lines of I'm standing in a dark room, there's no windows, there's no doors, I can't see, there's no help, there's no people, there's no light. And then a week later, my post is I'm still in this dark room, but I have to have faith that there's light. And then 2 weeks later, it's there's a crack in the door. And going that so far deep, and I've never really suffered with depression in my life. A little bit of postpartum maybe before, but nothing that dark and deep. And then sort of being able to pull myself out of it. There was lots of times where I was like, okay, do I need like antidepressants? Do I need, back and forth lots. Not that I'm against them, but let's try this. I'm a yoga teacher. I should be able to get myself out of this. I'm a meditator. I should be able to work myself out of this. And then just trying to slowly come back out. And that is definitely the hardest thing in my life I've ever done.
And I think that's so important to talk about because, like, people are going to face these struggles. Mm-hmm. And very few times are they talked about, like, honestly.
Yeah.
It's usually, like, I released a mental health special on the Lifestyle Chase, and that was episode 25.
Yeah.
And it's funny because so many people, well, it's not funny, but it's just a fact. Like, so many people think of mental health as being something really important, mm-hmm. and it's actually something that's used as like a buzzword for marketing, like, oh, I think mental health is important. So mm-hmm. But for myself, because I have a lot of personal reasons to really prioritize it, but it's just when you put that topic on the table, everybody runs away. Like, it's something that people steer away from because sad is scary kind of mm-hmm. thing. But without talking about the sad, we are unable to empower other people to overcome their sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like life is just up, down,
mm-hmm.
down. And sometimes down is really far down. Sometimes mm-hmm. up is really far up. And just knowing that it's going to be that way no matter what is important.
I think that was a part of the huge struggle for me was the, like, why am I so far down here? I was so high up. What happened, and because maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's just a life thing, but it was like, I felt like I was at this like peak of my life, like 3.5 years ago, like everything in my life was amazing. And then a cascading set of events kind of happen, and you never think it's going to happen. You think like once you achieve this like great peak that for some reason we believe we're going to be able to maintain this high achievement and we're never going to fall down. And I think that was actually the biggest struggle for me, is being at the bottom, being like, holy shit, how did I even get here? And then, but once you recognize that you're there, instead of trying to be like, I'm not here, I'm not that bad, I'm fine, then you're like actually prolonging the pain. As soon as you actually like recognize like, holy, I am sitting in shit right now, then you can go, okay, well, let's start to make ourselves out, like work our way out. Yeah.
So you have like this broad array of life experience, things that have happened, things that you've been through, things that you've tried. Mm-hmm. At this point, you probably have like a toolbox full of things that when you're at a low, this is what you're taking out of the toolbox, this is what that works. What are like the 4 top things?
One of the very first things I do is begin to edit my calendar. The first thing is, and I never have done that before in my life. I've always been, I committed to somebody, I'm going to be there. I'm going to make that appointment no matter how bloody miserable I am. I'm going to be there. And I had a lot of guilt around editing my schedule at first, but that is my first thing, because I am an empathic introvert or extroverted introvert. I get like really like caught up in sucking, the energy, or people sucking the energy out of me. So that was like my very first thing I realized, is that I have huge boundaries to be around people. I've even noticed that I probably don't even book things as much anymore, because I know I'm going to get to that point where I'm like, burnout, just a retreat from all of the people. So, boundaries around the people that I'm with. I'm quite selective in the people that I spend my time with, especially because I have a family that I would rather spend my time with. Meditation is a huge thing for me. I can go a couple of weeks without meditating and I'm fine. But the second I start to find myself in that slump or whatever, I go right back into it. That was probably the thing that helped me the most out of my dark spiral, is the like, okay, we're going to sit, we're just going to see what happens today. And then, so we were on 4 pillars, is that what we're asking before?
Yeah.
Okay. My 4 tools.
Yeah.
So boundaries with people, meditation for sure, exercise is a huge one for me. I'm a very physical person, so the physical release is a massive stress relief for me. And Just, my baths. Oh my gosh. I need my bath. That's part of my Sunday ritual is Sunday mornings I have a bath, and that is like I've even expressed to my husband, by the way, people, you need to do this, like ask for support if you need it, is I would have a bath and get frustrated, my kids banging on the door. So one day I was just like, I need this hour. I need you to make sure they are not banging on the door. And now it's just like, oh, mom's in her bath, leave mom alone. And I hang out in there, and it's like almost meditative, almost physical. There's just a lot going on, and that's like, if I feel overwhelmed, that's exactly where I go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have like sort of a routine for a bath? Like I know for myself, like if I feel stressed, I'm not gonna lie, I'll like draw an Epsom salt bath, chuck some lavender in there. I'm a man, but I can admit that. Like, proud of that.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's your routine?
So I do the Epsom salts and bubble bath, and our bathroom upstairs sold our house. I'm so lucky to have a nice big beautiful bathtub, and so if it's during the day, like my morning Sunday bath, I spend all the time as it's filling up. I get my glass of water, I have my coffee, I grab my book. Sometimes I'm a huge hippie and I grab crystals, and I have a face mask I do every Sunday, and I grab all of that, get myself, okay, mom's going, close the door, and like just sit down. But in the evening, if it's like evening, I'm 100% one of those people with like a million candles everywhere. The little tea light candles, they're just everywhere. But yeah, it's like a whole production. Yeah. I have to get my book and my salts and my bath, this and that, and yeah, it's my face cloth and my mask.
It's important to discuss because like there's people that are going to listen to this. It's probably going to be a lot of people who go through some kind of stress in their life, and they'll stumble across this podcast just randomly. Yeah. And they'll be, actually, that was really helpful because like somebody says, just relax, have a bath, and they just like draw some hot water, plunk themselves in there, like, yeah, this isn't working. It has to be production. Yeah. Like, even if it's like some manly kind of half-assed way of doing it, like myself, that's my production. Yeah. But like somebody needs to have this thing that they do to make themselves feel important and kind of helped, supported.
Yeah, the ritual is really important. It's because the ritual is the setup for the activity that you're performing, right? The setup and ritual is as important as the thing you are doing. And I don't want to make it be this daunting task where, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this just to have a bath. That's not what it is. It's everybody finds their own ritual. And in yoga, we talk a lot about practice. We call it a yoga practice because you have to practice something in order to get good at it. And so I had practiced my ritual until the point where I'm like, oh, because as soon as I turn the water on and I put the bath salts in and I grab the first item to put on my little bath caddy, that's the beginning of the ritual. That's like something just switches in my brain and goes, oh, here we are. Okay. Because the first time, I had a bath, it was like I'm sitting in a tub of hot water. Sweet. But it's the practice and the ritual of it that's turned it into something for me.
I like that.
Same thing with meditation and yoga and so on.
So now we're going to be on the topic of meditation because I want to know the origin story of that.
Of how I became a meditation teacher?
Yeah. Or like what got you into like meditation in the first place?
Yeah, well, I think yoga and meditation go quite hand in hand with each other. And I was kind of dabbling with it because I had taken my yoga teacher training. I didn't really meditate before. I tried a little bit. And I would just kind of like YouTube videos. I'd come down early in the morning, sit on the couch, and listen to like a 10-minute YouTube meditation video. And then so I was, a year or two into my being a yoga teacher, and Michelle had brought in Matthew Remski for a 4-day meditation teacher training weekend. And I was like, yeah, I'm so into that. And I totally took it, and it just like, he just like blew my mind. And I was like, oh, okay. And it just became one of these things. And then the studying with Michelle of the effects on relaxing the body or connecting to the parasympathetic nervous system and how it helps in the management of stress. So knowing that when I was going through my like really dark, deep stuff, was when it really became a practice for me, because I was like, oh, if I do this, it will help me relax my body, turn off that fight or flight, and turn on the rest and digest cycle, and it just kind of evolved from there. Like I meditate the most when I'm going through stuff, but I try to when I'm not, because the thing about meditation and yoga, we always prescribe, oh, do yoga, do meditation, help reduce stress, or what else do we tell? We tell people all kinds of shit. We'll cure all of your stuff with yoga and meditation. And the thing about it is yoga is not going to fix your stress, but the practice and the practice and the practice and the practice and the practice, like we just talked about, over and over and over again, eventually starts to translate to the outside of the yoga room life. And then you start going, oh yeah, when I'm in yoga class and I get really mad, this is what happens to my body. That self-awareness starts to creep in, and then you're in the outside world and you're like really, really mad, and you go, oh right, that's what mad feels like. What do I do when I'm mad? What helps me when I feel mad? And they just sort of kind of blend together. And meditation does the same thing. I think it's like a preemptive measure. Does that make sense? Like I meditate now so that when I'm going through shit, I have it there. I'm like, oh right, here's home.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. That's important. Do you have a daily routine for meditation?
Not right now. So I just kind of took my job. I was a full-blown entrepreneur, stay-at-home mom, work, whatever, for the last like 8 years. And then in November, I took a job. And so I'm still trying to figure out that kind of routine in life for me. But generally, I actually, I wake up at 5:15 in the morning and I go and work out. And after I work out, I do some stretching or some yoga, and then I sit like in the middle of the gym. I swear people think I'm insane. It's like crazy lady sitting off in the corner in the middle of the gym. But that's where I go, because I need the physical release first. That's 100% who I am. So I work out, yoga, or stretch a little bit, and then I just sit and I meditate, and I just like put in my earbuds, put on some like soothing music, and off I go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a routine.
Yeah.
Like every routine looks different, but some form of like consistency kind of helps us to build our foundation.
Yeah.
And then go up from there.
Yeah.
Because without a strong foundation, when we fall hard.
Well, and that's it. I find a lot of people are in their like pile of shit, like at the bottom of it. And that's when they reach for yoga and meditation, and that's going to help. That's going to frustrate you. It's the like when you're not at your lowest low that you learn the skills, and then when you are at the lowest low, you use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like with my own training and with clients, some of the most groundbreaking cues that I give them is just to breathe. Like oftentimes it'll be like a session that's like 6 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
And I'm intuitive enough to know that they just had a long day of work. Like they're gonna be pretty high strung. A lot of them, like I have one client that owns his IT company. So he's dealing with like big contracts and like lawyers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the simple act of just teaching them how to sort of calm their central nervous system is really, really valuable. Because the quality of that training session just went up like 2 notches, from like a 6 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. Great.
And it's just funny because it doesn't take much. Like I don't have to be an expert. I just have to be like, now breathe in and out. And this is like the second podcast episode where I've been like, and this is how we breathe. But it's just it's funny how like these simple habits, they don't have to be like super fancy. Just breathe. Yeah. But do it properly, not just like partial or anything like that. Yeah. Feel the oxygen really fill up the torso. And so sometimes people are like, well, I don't really have a routine. And then I listen to what they do and I'm like, no, you have a routine. Yeah. You just have not like called it a routine. Yeah. So next topic, because I have a feeling that you have some things to say about it, is travel. Travel. Okay. What's the coolest place you've been to ever?
I haven't been a lot of places, but when I was 15, I was an exchange student in France. And that was probably the coolest experience of my life, being on the other side of the world without my parents, for one thing. And I didn't really speak any French. And I was going to school there for, that when I was there, when we'd walk and completely seeing another culture. Not just in the sense of like visiting. So, I mean, I've been to Cuba and I've experienced Cuban culture, for example. But that's from a tourist advantage. And when I was an exchange student in France, like I was at the dinner table with them, and I was 15 drinking wine at dinner. It was totally cool. But like I actually got to like be in the culture, not as a tourist, but as like somebody who actually lives there. And that was totally the coolest travel experience ever.
And I honestly think that travel is so valuable, just in the general premise that this is putting us out of our normal routine where we expect or we know what to expect. And it doesn't even have to be that far away.
Yeah.
Like, I've gone to a hostel in, like, Jasper, and that felt like traveling far away. You're with a ton of people who are coming from Europe. Like, you're going to be out of your comfort zone. You might not be able to speak the same language as a lot of people in there, although they will speak perfect English.
Yeah.
It's just when you're kind of, like, getting ready for bed, you're going to feel a way different atmosphere than normal. And it kind of forces you to learn more about what makes you who you are, to sort of reframe different situations and then get back to your normal routine fresh.
Yeah.
So one project that I've been trying with my parents, and my parents listen to this, is I've been trying to get them to go to a yoga class. And they're like, why a yoga class? And it's because it's to get them out of their comfort zone, to like change up their routine altogether and just throw them into the fire, essentially.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people just get used to like their status quo. Like, we know on this day we do this, and we're gonna go drive and take pictures of birds. And it's really great that they take pictures of birds.
Yeah.
Because they take good pictures and it gives them their quiet time.
Yeah.
But if you were like a yoga salesperson and you had to convince my parents that they had to go to a yoga class, what are the 3 things that you'd say that you think would seal the deal?
Well, I even though I'm in marketing, I'm awful at sales. But they, I mean, it would depend on what they're into and what they like. But let's just assume I'm generalizing people. Do they work out? Can I get that context?
So, as far as gym goes, they've been to a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And they live on an acreage, rural community. They're going to be way, way out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Never done any group fitness.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And I want to send them to like a boutique yoga studio.
Yeah.
Because it's like the farthest from their comfort zone that I can think of.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't send them to their farthest from their comfort zone.
That's fair.
Like there's sometimes a little too far can break it for people. But I would tell them that it's not what they think it's going to be. I think a lot of people have an idea of oming and chanting and spirituality, and there are classes like that, but especially in the Western world, especially in the Edmonton community, there's a lot of like really just down-to-earth yoga teachers, and they're probably going to feel a little more welcome than they think they are.
Totally.
And so that's definitely one thing. The other thing is that know that the only people that have expectations of them are really themselves. Everybody is way, way, way too self-conscious on their own bloody mat to worry about what the heck you are doing. Seriously. That is 100% the truth. And maybe the third thing that puts everybody at ease is I promise I never notice if people's toenails aren't painted or their legs aren't shaved or they forgot their deodorant today. I swear I never notice. I have taught over 2,500 hours of yoga, and I have not once noticed if somebody forgot to shave their legs or paint their toenails.
Those are like legit things to say, because like sometimes people worry about that.
Yeah.
half the time, like, I go to a yoga class and I can speak to how, like, approachable most instructors are. Like, because I'll maybe go to, like, one every 3 months or something. I'm not, like, a normal yogi, but I can, like, walk into a studio and feel fairly content or confident. But usually that's when I need to, like, trim my toenails, like, the most. I've never been called out for it, though. So
even if we did notice, nobody would even say anything.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do? Like, bring me the nail clippers.
Exactly. What would I say? You should shave your legs. Like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And, it's totally, like... I think the whole point of actually that exact point is that everybody is so self-conscious about being in yoga for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure, but some people I'm not bendy. Well, maybe that's why you're going to yoga. My legs aren't shaven. I promise you, I don't even notice. Or, I can't do these crazy postures. That's cool because the person that can knows that one point in her life, she couldn't either and she needs to learn them.
Yeah.
And really everybody is far too self-conscious on their own mat to even like worry about what you're doing.
Well, even if they're not self-conscious, sometimes they're totally just self-aware.
Yeah.
Well, like everybody has their starting point. For myself, I can totally understand anybody who goes into a group fitness class because everything that I've gone to for the first time, I've been incredibly awkward. Like super awkward.
Yeah.
I've like walked into people because I've been like nervous and just like walked directly into people.
Yeah.
I've fallen asleep in countless yoga classes, but that's a common thing.
Yeah,
like,
it's very common.
A lot of people do that.
Lots.
I've gone to, I think, every like different fitness thing under the sun in the city, just with my involvement with Yeg Fitness and stuff. But like I've been like the only dude to bar classes. I've been one of the only dude to the bounce or the soar classes with the trampoline. And so what that has done for me is just given me so much understanding of that I could just kind of go into anything and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, granted, I will not be the best at it, but it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'll learn more about what is important to me and what I need. And that's all I care. And now, like, for myself, one of my things that I'm fairly involved with is just spin classes. And I know a lot of the instructors in town. And so I'm very comfortable in that setting. But at one point, I was not. However, when I see a new person, I totally get it. Like, they walk in there and they might be a little nervous. I'm like, you have no reason to be nervous. Like, not the slightest reason.
Yeah.
And I guess what I think is, because my mom always asked me, she's like, why should I go to a studio and not just do the lessons on TV? Because they do that much. Because I went to Lululemon and I got her a nice mat because I wanted to kind of like build in that reason to practice.
Yeah.
And they definitely do.
Yeah.
But I want to encourage them to sort of get an idea of what they want for their life, because they're retired. They're kind of like finding their niche, finding things that are important, finding priorities. Because as things go on, you can put your time into a lot of things that no longer serve you, or you can put your time into things that aren't like your passion.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important that no matter what age we are, we continue to know like what's important for us.
Yeah.
So it's not so much like bullying my parents. It's just kind of like I've learned so much from fitness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is important. And if they can learn it, that's awesome. Because my parents are important to me just as many people's are to them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And on that topic, because I like to generally ask, what are 3 lessons that you learned from your parents?
Oh, that's a deep question. Definitely from my mom, like the resilience factor. My mom had 4 kids. My parents divorced when I was 5, so she would have had a 7, 5, 3, and 1-year-old. I'm one of 4 kids. And my mom has taught me, like, no matter what, you just keep swimming kind of thing. Like, you just keep going. If life has thrown this crappy thing at you, it's crappy, sure, but you just keep going. And that's like who she is. And that is probably like my most pride thing about myself that I 100% got from her, is like, no matter what, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And so that, and then on top of that, like, all of these lessons are probably going to be from my mother. My mom with that, like, just keep pushing, just get her done, do whatever you got to do to survive. Also taking that, but then the other side of it, that like softness, that like you can be extreme, you can do whatever you need to do, but at the end of the day, like finding that, like that soft spot, that hug, that love, that affection, and being able to have the duality of it is amazing. And you know, from both of my parents, 100% work ethic. Both of them are like, you do not show up half-assed for anything. Like, if you are saying you're going to do something, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it correctly the first time. And definitely from both of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
And then the next quick one is you talk about endometriosis. Mm-hmm. And I've seen just in your social media and stuff, like, there's some like tough days. Like, what's it like? Like, what is a tough day with that like?
Yeah, so just for anybody who's listening who wants to know what endometriosis is, really brief explanation is the cells that are typically on the inside of a uterus grow outside. So in women, we're like shedding the lining of our uterus, and it leaves our body. In endometriosis, because it's inside my stomach, it doesn't get to go anywhere. So it just builds and builds and builds and builds and develops like masses, basically. And so it's a lot. It's very painful. And most of the time it can be brought down to just a few days a month where it's quite painful. And it feels a lot like, to me, like razor blades inside of my stomach. Like, just like hundreds of them, like slashing at the inside of my stomach. And I'm sorry, that's so graphic. But yeah, and so I have come to the point where I can realize what's triggering it. There's diet and exercise are a huge involvement in endometriosis and how it affects us. But for me in particular, it's stress. So I can, you know, I've boiled myself down to 2 to 3 days at about a level like 8, 9 pain, 2 to 3 days, you know, in like the 5 to 7 range in pain, and the rest of the time I'm generally fine. But when I go up in days like that, or the pain is really high, I can actually correlate it to stress. I'll be like, oh, I'm going through a lot of stress right now. Great, I'm super like in tons of pain. And yeah, so living with it kind of, it sucks a lot. But at the same time, that's one of my like signifiers. That's like one of my like, oh, wait, I didn't even notice that I was stressed, but clearly I am, because this is my body's reaction. So to have, instead of thinking about it just being this like horrible thing that's happened to me or that I have, I actually am like, oh great, this is my like cue that I need to slow down, or I need to stop something, or I've gone past my boundary somewhere, and it's my like cue to like rear myself back in. So I don't know if that completely answered your question, but it takes me a lot to modify my life, because again, like I said, I'm one of those people who I know I can push really hard physically, mentally, but then I have to use my, you know, that knowledge to back myself off a little bit. And so in exercise, for example, I know that I can run and run and run and run and run, but I know it hurts my back. It causes pressure on my low back because of the endometriosis. So I have to find another activity. Or I was doing spin for a while. I was like, spin will work, but now that also is horrible for my body and endometriosis. So I just find other ways to do things.
Totally. And it's important to like kind of talk about these things in this way. Mm-hmm. Because like I interviewed Patricia Jahuvka for one of the episodes.
I love her. And
just the way that she frames MS, like the opportunities that wouldn't have happened if not for MS, and
exactly
the friendships and all these things. Because what can you possibly do? Like you've had something diagnosed for you, you can't really change it.
Yep.
but you have things to do with life. And so how are you going to make the most of that?
Yeah.
And I sort of look at this podcast as something that, hey, like for once we're actually just going to talk about what people are going to do with life when life happens to them, because it happens to everybody.
Yep.
There's like this long list of things that can happen.
Yeah.
Like as much as I enjoy the episodes like with Vance where we're talking about how he's having twins, that's exciting. But then there's episodes where like people have bad things happen, but they also need to be talked about.
Yep.
And somebody's going to hear it and they're going to be like, I never honestly thought about it that way. Or sometimes they'll hear from somebody that they think is just untouchable, unstoppable. Like you couldn't beat them with a baseball bat. That's how powerful they are. And they're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's important to talk about that.
The connection is important. And going back to the question you asked me earlier about one of the things that's important to me on my social media, and it being the connection in the community. 16 million women worldwide have endometriosis. 16 million. You wouldn't believe the amount of messages I get when I post anything endometriosis related. And that's why I posted. I'm like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I can't move my body today. And it's not the like, oh, woe is me. Okay, a little bit. but it's about like, women are like, oh, I have endometriosis too. I never thought of using the stair mill when I can't run. How do you manage? And, oh, I've never thought of it that way. Or I do this. And it's this like community and this bonding with these women that we're like, we are suffering from this, but we're also finding ways of living with it and continuing our lives and it not defining us.
And I like that take on the stair mill because it reminds me of, I have a client that I did some sessions with, and then he went and snowboarded and he tore his Achilles.
Oh gosh.
And it was just like right at the start of, he was like, all right, I'm gonna hone it in, we're turning 40, I'm gonna get super fit. And I was like giving him the tools. I was like, okay, this is what you do. I went and I taught him how to breathe, taught him a cool trick to alleviate the stress in his neck because he's an accountant, lots of stress. And then, he just wrecked himself. He's going to have a cast on his foot for, I think it's like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And so thinking about what he could train, and like his wife was talking to me and she was like, well, what should he do? And I was like, well, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
His Achilles is torn. Nothing else is torn.
Yeah.
So like sit on a chair, do like upper body stuff. There's tons of like banded accessory work. Just crush it.
Yeah.
Just rock it every day. Do that stuff because you can train that stuff.
Yeah.
And people think of what they can't do and then they forget about what they can do.
Agreed.
And a cool thing, I'm just packing this podcast with shout outs because at one point I had seen something on Instagram stories, and it was Amber and Jesse Capina went through a whole day and they said that everything that they did in that day, instead of saying I have to, I get to. And it seems like such a like cliche thing to say until you actually like say it. Like I woke up this morning and I kind of looked at my calendar and I was like, I wish I had maybe a few more clients today. I have to like find something to do. And then I thought about it. I was like, no. Like what I'm doing for work, I love it. I get to wake up and I get to go to spin class just for me because I used to instruct them. And so now I just go because I recognize that it's something that fills my cup. So I get to see these people that I enjoy seeing. Yeah. And then I get to find something that I like doing.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good way to look at things. Because we all have this array of things that we get to do. Because life is short. Not everybody gets like that next day kind of thing. That's just the absolute brutal truth.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
Yeah, all about mindset. We're just like, we checked off so many boxes in this episode.
I literally wrote like last week something about the like I get to the like, right now my life is like really busy and I could complain about not getting time to do this, but instead I get to, I'm thankful and grateful that I get to teach yoga and be a marketing person and be a mom and be a business owner. Like I get to do all of the things I want to do.
Yeah.
And like That's amazing. There are some women who are just, I wish I could be a business owner. I wish I could be a yoga teacher. And I just get to wake up every bloody day and be them. That's awesome.
Darn right. You can't see I just pumped my fist in the air.
Yeah, cool.
So now we're going to go to our very last question. And this is something that I ask everybody. It's really cool to see all the answers. After a while, I like put it together and put some music in the background. It looks really badass.
Okay.
But the question is, if you were going to give one piece of advice on how to authentically live your life to the fullest, what would it be?
Ask yourself why. Everything. Ask yourself why. Why do you feel it's necessary to do these things, whether it's something you want to do or don't want to do? Because as soon as you understand the why, and it's even if it's okay if you're doing something that is not something you want to do, as long as your why is there, you're like, I do this thing that I hate to do because it's important to me that this person has what they need, or I take care of this person. But as soon as you're, in something and your why is like, I don't even know why. Like, I do it because I'm supposed to. Like, that's not an answer. That's not a why. And as soon as we constantly do the like, why, we start to A, find out what's important to us, and B, what's not important to us. And then we can set those boundaries and live the way we want to live. That's, why do I go to work every bloody day? For a paycheck. Okay, well, is there another way you can get a paycheck? Well, yeah. Well, why not do that? Right? Like, I mean, it sounds so simple, and it's, of course, harder than that. But, like, why? Just ask why, and you would believe the things you're like, shit, why do I do that? Oh, because I've been conditioned my whole life, or I was told that's the way it is. Like, that's not a good reason.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. This has been a great episode.
Thanks. I think so too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, and I will hopefully see you around sometime in the future.
Absolutely.